of marriage is about trust and responsibility. But it is also about commitment, about two individuals coming together and making fundamental decisions. And we say when it's something as fundamental as having a baby, extending your family, both sides have to consent, right? So one thing that opening opposition had problems with, they talked about how there will be now physical and psychological burden on women, and they also talked about how this is a form of slavery. I'm going to deal with this before going on to my substantive, where I'll be talking about interpretation of marriage institution, and also I'll be talking about the support of the husband. Now, let's deal with opening opposition. They said that we are now inflicting physical and psychological burden on this woman alone. We don't think so. First of all, about the physical part of how this woman has to carry this baby for 9 months. As much as we like to argue that, there is no such physical harm, the point of the matter is it's a biological process, right? We think that the father, if he had the option, he might as well, carry the baby as well, but he's not equipped as well, as we all know, right? So that's why the father does not play that part of the process. But does that mean that the father does not go through the psychological harm that you're talking about? We're talking about a father who wants to stop maybe his wife from committing abortion because he has attachment to the unborn baby. We're talking about this attachment, Mrs. Speaker, as a form of bodily autonomy and sovereignty. We're also talking about the fact that this right that the father has contributes as well to the right of the baby. How does this happen? They talked about how the woman has the right to her bodily autonomy. We think that the right ceases to exist when you carry another person within your womb. Yes, you have bodily autonomy to not do whatever you want, but you also have now the extra right of another person inside your body. That includes the right of your husband. That's when Fariz's speech, when he talked about the right and the bodily autonomy of the husband, actually comes to play a part. And we believe that that has to be preserved, and the mother's bodily autonomy, in that sense, cannot have an absolute right in that matter. And before that, yes.
Logically speaking, if there's a case of a deadlock where the father wants a child, the mother doesn't want a child, then what is the deciding factor within your proposal?
See, this is where the point of support and also interpretation of marriage comes in. I'll deal with that in my substantive video, I'm not just saying that, right? Okay, now, forcing choices. Now, are we forcing the mother to actually bear the baby? Because this is how they actually term it slavery. That we're making this mother's baby-making factory. I think it's highly derogatory for you to call that, but even if you want to take the term wholly right, call it slavery, we don't think so. Because we're not giving the father an absolute choice, right? We're taking also into account the women's right. The women still has the right to say yes or no. And this is where my substantive comes in really, really nicely in making a power play between, equal power play between a husband and a wife, right? Modern interpretation of marriage institutions. We're talking about, in my substantive, the individualistic nature that we're approaching right now. How everyone has like different bank accounts. You have your own car, I have my own car. And this has necessarily created a rift. And you want to further fuel that rift in terms of, a fundamental thing like having a baby as well. We think that that's not necessarily creating problems within the marriage institution. And for us to actually support and protect the sanctity of the marriage institution, we have to actually give the support. How, Mrs. Speaker? We're talking about how a child, in terms of creating a basis of a family institution, there should be unity. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to create support and platform, Mrs. Speaker, a platform for them to discuss. So now what happens if the wife is actually pregnant, Mrs. Speaker? So what happens if there's a deadlock? This is where support really comes into play, right? Neither party can do anything unless and until, the problem is actually solved. So what are they forced to do? They are forced to sit down and talk to each other and resolve the differences. And this is what we want in terms of eliminating the risks in marriage. So they can go to counseling if they want to, Mrs. Speaker. They can talk to their extended family if they want to, Mrs. Speaker. Because at the end of the day, they have to sort out the differences, and neither can go forward without the other's consent. And this is what they're trying to emphasize from this side of the house. Yes.
Great. Because this particular policy is time sensitive, you have to make a decision in a particular time. Keep dilly-dallying. You're only favoring the man.
No, we're not. Here's the thing. If okay, you get probably 2 months to make this decision, right? We're talking about people being also sensitive to actually the time factor. They're not going to just dilly-dally and postpone the decision just because the father can't decide, right? We're talking about the father being active participant, the mother also being an active participant within the timeline. That's what we want. And we also want to talk about the issue of support within the marriage, Mr. Speaker. When we're talking about support, necessarily when you're giving this right to only the mother, what you're actually doing is you're isolating the mother psychologically. Here is a pregnant woman who doesn't want the baby, and she doesn't really have necessarily anyone to talk to, Mr. Speaker. And we're giving her the power to actually not carry the baby all by herself. What we're now doing is we're opening up the avenue for her to look for support in terms of a husband. And that's what marriage institution is necessarily about in the first place. Talking about and commitment between two individuals. And that's what we want at the end of the day. We want this woman to have psychological support. We want this woman to have not only financial support, but also in terms of, the husband being there to help her to make all the right decisions and choices. And this kind of legislation will actually push forward the husband to actually talk to the woman and tell her, you know what, we have to talk about having this baby or not having this baby. So if in any terms the woman shows to her husband that she does not want to have the baby and the husband just agrees that the woman should not have the baby, then we see that they are in terms of a family being united, and that's what we want. Sanctity of the marriage and commitment at the end of the day is preserved, right? So what has opening Durban talked about? Opening Durban, we told you that at the end of the day, marriage is about commitment of two persons, and in that commitment, we have to take into account the husband's consent when you're talking about something as fundamental as family and creating another life together. With that,